Now you can listen to Wine and Dine Radio while shopping at the grocery store or your neighborhood wine merchant. Wine and Dine Radio can be heard using your wireless internet on your cell phone. You're listening to iWineRadio. iWineRadio is a production of Food Tastes Better with Wine on the web at iWineRadio.com. Hey guys, I thank you for listening to iWineRadio, and we are still the only wine channel on iTunes Radio. If you go look under iTunes radio icon and scroll down to News and Talk Directory, and it's listed alphabetically, click on that and the stream comes up immediately. iWineRadio.com, where you can find links to individual guests. And if anyone's interested in advertising or becoming an underwriter or sponsor, please contact us at iWineRadio.com. We really, really appreciate your support. The more support we get, the more conversations I can have with fascinating people around the world, including you. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to share on iWine Radio, go to iWineRadio.com and contact us, and we'll go from there. I am very pleased to be able to connect once again with Wine Australia, the regional director of North America, which of course includes United States and Canada, and her name is Angela Slade. She's based out of Washington, D.C. There is a lot to talk about. We want to share with you today trade events, consumer events in the United States, in Australia also. And so let's start by welcoming Angela. Thank you so very much. And can I start by asking you, if you kind of get us in the mood here, you said that you are married to an Australian and lived in Australia for many years. How the heck were you living in Australia when you met your husband, or how did that come about?
Well, first, thanks for having me on today, Lynn. And, well, if we've got a long time, I can tell you that story, but I can make it quick. We actually both quite enjoy living overseas, and we met when we were both living in Italy. We were living in Rome, and part of an expat community of British and Irish, American, Aussies, New Zealanders, all catching up with each other frequently, and we were just part of the same group and met each other, and I quite liked him, and I guess he quite liked me. So thus our romance began, and I moved back to Australia with him a couple of years later.
What were you doing in Italy? I mean, was it after college?
It was after college, but I was born in San Francisco, raised in Napa. So, Lynn, I've been in the wine industry my whole life.
Oh, my.
Couldn't get away from it if I wanted to. Love it. So, starting in Napa, of course, in the summers, and I went off to Italy because I really wanted to learn about the wine industry in Italy. I was curious, and I was able to get myself a job and do it out there. It was a wonderful experience. So, I was there for just about almost 5 years.
Oh my gosh! So you must speak Italian then?
Oh, I'm a little rusty. It's been a while, but yes, I was at the time. I was quite good. I could translate, and I did okay. I got through, but it's definitely rusty by now. I mean, I can still. My husband and I, we still joke and do things in Italian and shout at each other or say things we don't want the kids to hear about in Italian. But otherwise, I don't use it too much. I don't use the language too much anymore.
What did you study in college?
Actually, I studied. I was in a liberal arts degree. I do not come from a business background. I come from humanities, the arts, classics, language, and that was my real interest. It was arts and language and classics. But I think with that, you are so much a part of culture and people and learning how people work and communicate that I've just naturally morphed into an education, a public relations outreach role. And so much of what I do and what I have done with the wine industry is about connecting people and working with people, and I think that's been the basis of a lot of our success to date.
Australian wines account for what kind of percentage of sale of wine in the United States? Do you know that kind of figure?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Well, right now Australian wine is the second most, by volume, we're the second importer into the U.S. just after Italy. We represent 18% of market share for import, so pretty significant. And we've been that for a number of years. I
am surprised. I didn't realize that Italy was number one.
Italy's number one, yes, by volume. By volume, And so Australia comes in right after that.
What is the most popular varietal or region that Americans are, or even brand, if you're allowed to say, that Americans are consuming in the United States and in Canada?
Well, across North America, first of all, most of the wines from traditionally that we've sent to America, let's start with America, have been from, if they're regionally labeled, they're usually from South Australia. That's been the state that's been probably on the front foot of getting most of their wines here since, I'd say, the past 20, 30 years. That's been quite successful. Other brands, of course, have come into the market. Yeah. Yellowtail, of course, came into the market and has been very successful in the States. So that it does take a large percent of the market share at certain price points. And then going up the price points, the regional premium wines that we're seeing a lot of in the States, particularly, it has been led by South Australia, but in the last few years we're seeing lots of inroads from Victoria, from Western Australia, New South Wales, things that the diversity and the regional offering is really starting to open up and shift. So we're seeing a nice snapshot of Australia at long last.
There's no language barrier, and I would think that there is a lot of almost a camaraderie, but in some weird way, because of the histories being so similar, United States and Australia. Coming up in April, there is a trade media event in New York, and I'm assuming it's New York City.
It's New York City.
So how do people who are in the restaurant business, in the retail business, in the wholesale business, or even importers, how do they get involved with learning if they have to buy a ticket or how they can attend that event?
Well, absolutely. It's called the Next Chapter event, and it's going to be on April the 17th. And what we can do, we've just started our real outreach for that event, so we are working with a pretty extensive trade and distributor list, but people can always go onto our website, which is simply wineaustralia.com, and you'll see a whole section for the Next Chapter pop up. It's a little bit of browsing, but you'll be able to see that on the homepage. I would say probably by the second week of March, we'll start to be able to see that a little bit more clearly, all the details for the invitation.
Okay, wonderful. So they can take care of that on their own then?
They can take care of it on their own if by any chance they didn't hear from us, but I'd be surprised. We have a pretty extensive outreach program. So
what was the purpose of a trade research project with Wine Opinions? What are you trying to get from that trade? Is it has to do with consumer trends or things in the past, or are you trying to forecast what some changes towards attitude in the future?
Right. Well, we're in the middle of what I'm calling the Next Chapter campaign right now. All of the activities we're doing are really themed Next Chapter, and that is because we felt that there was a bit of a gap in, and this is for the U.S. market, so a bit of a gap in the U.S. market between the perceptions of what Australia has to offer, what's available in the U.S., and then the reality of really what we have in Australia, the diversity, the regionality, the full spectrum of offerings of styles and price points. So we've been really working hard to help educate the U.S. trade about what Australia can offer. And there's a lot of newness, I suppose it's probably not a real word, but newness for the trade to get to revisit the Australian category and see us today. So they may have seen certain wines in the past, and some of those wines are still available, and there's a whole lot more. So a lot of our activities are coined the Next Chapter, and the research with John Gillespie, one of the areas that we felt we needed to address was trade and distributor perceptions about Australian wine.
Okay.
And we're doing a lot of work to try to take that forward, but I thought, if we don't stop and ask the questions, we might not be on the right path. So John is wonderful, and he's gone out and has put together a great program where we can target that to trade and distributors and ask their questions about their perceptions, what's worked for them in the past, what hasn't worked, and maybe what some of their ideas are for how they feel Australia can grow in the future. And with that, we're going to announce the results in about mid-April, probably right around the time of this next chapter event on April 17th, and look at some of those, and I'll then have a response from Wine Australia about how we can address the negative and then work toward the positive.
I can't imagine that there would be negative, but I guess you're anticipating that there are some negative perceptions, and you're thinking in terms of marketing, right?
I'd say it might be, but I think, it's really a lot of us, everyone in the industry, in the wine industry, has been affected through the recession years.
Yes.
And post-recession. So I think that's really what I'm looking at, particularly, is that there were, and this wouldn't just be to Australia alone, this would be everyone in the industry would have experienced this, and I want to see how it's affected Australia. There would have been inventory impacts, distributors, people had to discount and move through things. I want to see where everyone's at now with Australia, and I'm assuming these were some tough years with the recession. That was quite difficult. And then the Australian currency has changed some of the pricing for Australian wine. So really, those are the questions and those are the topics we're trying to get to the bottom of so we can move forward.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I can't wait to see that. Are you going to
I know, it'll be good.
Are you going to make that report public on
wineaustralia.com?
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing secret. It's here's what we're doing. Let's ask some of those questions and then let's address those. So I'm again, as I was joking earlier about you got the gray hairs to prove it, it's pretty tough. I got to be able to take some of the negative. I have to be able to listen to the trade, and they're not always gentle and positive and complimentary. It's a big market and there's a lot at stake. So I want to be able to talk and understand what some of those issues are. If there are positives, great. If there are negative, okay, let's learn about them and then let's move forward. So that's my job.
There'll probably be a lot of regionality, similarities between different parts of the United States and North and Canada for that matter as well.
Exactly. But this particular research project is just U.S. specific at this time. We have other programs for Canada, which are more based on probably the consumer prompts and consumer insights because of just the market structure instead of the three-tier system, working, of course, so closely with the monopolies and the liquor boards.
Yes.
The buying, the chain, supply chain is a little bit easier.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I understand that fully. Okay, we're going to go to a short break here. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Angela Slade, who's the regional director for North America for Wine Australia, and you can learn more online at wineaustralia.com. We're going to tell you about an upcoming Savor opportunity in Australia in September, and even a scholarship opportunity. We'll be right back. And I thank you for listening to Wine and Dine. I am amazed how many people in the wine industry are working now from a jumping off point of a business degree. Wine Australia Next Chapter is offering also a business scholarship. And let's ask Angela Slade about this, the regional director of Wine Australia North America. So, and you know, when we were talking about this research project with John Gillespie of Wine Opinions, it occurred to me that since you're making this information public, that it might be something to feed into a senior project in marketing or business or something for a high school or undergraduate or even graduate level. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It really depends on what the results are, but I'm I'm anticipating we'll have a fair bit of work to do on the back end of this. I would hope there'd be a lot of positive ideas that we would then be able to take and develop into a marketing campaign and a marketing program, for sure.
Okay, talk to us about this opportunity for supporting and even opening up new businesses for... Yeah, talk to us about this. I don't want to insert, maybe I'm not describing it correctly.
No, you're doing a great job. It's part of our Next Chapter campaign that we are running right through from, really, we kicked it off in January 2013, and it's probably going to run through June or July 2013, right through the summer, early summer. What we've discovered is, as we're bringing in and noticing that there's a great interest in regional and premium Australian wine at perhaps the higher price point end of the business, particularly for restaurateurs, we're also finding some supply chain challenges, that some of these wines that they're interested aren't available. What we're noticing are that there are small importers that are trying to get into the business, and they're young, they don't have a lot of money, and they're trying to learn more about Australian wine and trying to go to Australia to do buying trips to then supply the market with some of these particular wines is quite difficult for them financially.
Yes.
We're also on the other side noticing that there are importers that have been in the States for a number of years, want to expand and change up some of their wines that they have from Australia, add new brands, and for them to go out to Australia on a buying or a scouting trip is also financially difficult. So I'm creating a scholarship, a Next Chapter business scholarship, and I'll be reaching out. I'll be announcing this again in April with the details, and with all the details will be listed out. What this scholarship entails. And what I'm looking for is new business, someone who needs a trip to Australia for buying and scouting, and those reasons why. And the scholarship will award whoever we deem, we're putting those details together, but whoever we deem as most in need of that. And it will be a trip to Australia, a 2-week trip that will cover their travel, their airfare, and accommodation to allow them to go out and do the business that they're trying to do and bring it back to the U.S.
Was that your idea? Because that's a fantastic idea.
Yes, it was. Well, it's just you notice that people need that, and
yes.
And it's hard. We know, no doubt about it. And in this economy, it's everyone's tightened their belt a bit more with being able to spend, and those trips are time consuming and expensive. So we want to help.
Just a queer thought. My favorite wine of all wines are sparkling wines, and I know that there are some sparkling wines in Australia and some of the champagne firms down there. But is it, just as a crazy idea, would even somebody who wanted to put together an import business that just focused on Australian sparkling wine? I mean, is that? I mean, it as crazy as that sounds, what kind of diversity would there be in basing your whole business model on sparkling wines from Australia? You'd need to expand beyond that, wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know. I think there are a lot of good... One, you're making me thirsty, but two, there are a lot of good options. Most of the states in Australia would be viable for producing sparkling wine. There'd be some great options. Certainly Victoria, certainly Tasmania. I'd be looking at Tasmania, and there are most producers will have a sparkling wine of one sort or another, and whether they're imported or not. So from each of the states, it would require a little bit of off the beaten path, a little bit of more discovery, but that sounds great. Yeah, and
probably a lot of homework. You say discovery, but so you're being really efficient with your time. Okay, talk to us about this upcoming Savor International Australian Wine Forum in September.
This is fantastic. This is, for some reason, it's hard for me to understand. We have not had, as Australia, an international wine forum on our calendar. We've done it domestically. We just haven't ever had an international wine forum, an international gathering of this nature, and now we're launching it. It really is again, it's a next chapter or a new era for Australian wine. And so we are bringing this, we're announcing this, doing this in September. We've just announced the host city will be Adelaide. There was a state tender that went out, so the different states in Australia put their hands up and put money in and battled it out, and South Australia won it. It will be held in Australia, or in Adelaide. We are inviting the industry to come to Australia for a pretty comprehensive 3-day forum that will include business topics. It will include a lot of, and obviously wine tastings led by international experts, and the business topics, of course, led by international experts around the world. And we'll also include a lot of lifestyle elements. This is probably where it's going to be quite different. We are engaging a lot of the local chefs, celebrity chefs, who will have really dynamic lifestyle, food, wine, travel, tourism, lifestyle projects and elements that weave right in through this whole 3 days. And that's probably what's going to make it a little bit unique in the world of wine. We signed a memorandum of understanding with Tourism Australia just in December that kicked off January 1st, 2013. It's a 3-year MOU. And this is essentially us aligning and working together as Wine Australia and Tourism Australia to engage consumers on a much wider scope globally about Australia. So this is a government directive and a very new project, but it's opened the door for us to reach out on a much, much wider scale for a consumer campaign right into, it's probably going to kick off from January to spring, April-ish of 2014. So this is the Savor event that we're doing in September is really an industry alignment activity before we roll into a much broader period of consumer activity going forward. A very important moment for the Australian wine industry.
I was going to ask you that, and you answered that. So this event in September is geared towards trade, and trade could be. Is it only wine trade? It could be food trade involved, other beverage trade.
Exactly. It is opened right up. We initially would work from a Wine Australia point of view. We initially worked with wine trade, but since our partnership with Tourism Australia has opened our eyes up to really going much wider with how we approach this whole business, and that's what's interesting. And so, yes, it will be open to trade from other areas that touch on tourism and food and travel.
So that would include also travel agents. Who book?
This is where right.
Yeah.
And this is initially the project is a wine convention, but these other areas are very much being touched, and that's where wine Tourism Australia will be coming right in and helping to build their side of the program as well with us.
Makes so much sense.
It does. It makes so much sense to all work together. And especially in our competitive markets, working together with other Australian government agencies, whether they're states or a federal government agency like Tourism Australia, makes all the sense in the world. We pool our resources, have broader scope, and we all know each other anyway, so it's like a great big rambunctious family working together. So it's just the first couple months of this partnership have been great.
Angela Slade, Regional Director for North America, representing Wine Australia. Thank you so very much, and thank you, Donna White, for putting me in touch with Wine Australia once again. Please think of us as an outlet that you can always help spread the word about wine and what's going on in Australia.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
We will have links up for you to learn more, and I thank you for listening to Wine and Dine. Now, you can listen to Wine and Dine Radio while shopping at the grocery store or your neighborhood wine merchant. Wine and Dine Radio can be heard using your wireless internet on your cell phone. You're listening to iWineRadio. iWineRadio is a production of Food Tastes Better with Wine on the web at iWineRadio.com. Hey guys, I thank you for listening to iWineRadio, and we are still the only wine channel on iTunes Radio. If you go look under iTunes radio icon and scroll down to News and Talk Directory, and it's listed alphabetically, click on that and the stream comes up immediately. iWineRadio.com, where you can find links to individual guests. And if anyone's interested in advertising or becoming an underwriter or sponsor, please contact us at iWineRadio.com. We really, really appreciate your support. The more support we get, the more conversations I can have with fascinating people around the world, including you. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to share on iWine Radio, go to iWineRadio.com and contact us, and we'll go from there.